Hello, my name is Michelle Powers, and I am presenting painting today in the creativity and visual arts theme that I've been making videos for the last few times. I hope you will review and go back to see the elements of art, the basic foundations of art, from dot and line and shape, colors, textures, patterns, and ways to make textures and patterns, ways to sketch, gestures, contour, drawing. We worked a lot with just sketching and drawing, and added colors, primary, secondary, complementary, perspective, and now we're moving on to painting, which involves, we're going to work with acrylic paints, watercolors, paint, adding water to colored pencils is like painting, pastels, oil pastels. It's a borderline of drawing and painting, but painting usually means you're going to have brushes and paints. We're going to work with acrylics, which are water-based. I recommend those for anyone who's just starting out, and for anyone in professional art too, because they're not as toxic and easier to work with and clean up. So I've always encouraged you to find master artists through the centuries that you like or want to know more about, and my favorites I've dwelled on in these videos in the Renaissance, starting with the Renaissance, with Da Vinci and Michelangelo. And for me, Michelangelo is the master painter and sculptor until we get to contemporary work in the last 2 centuries. And this is the example for me of his greatest work, when he illustrates the Bible for the Roman Catholic Church, the Sistine Chapel. Now, of course, you can't see the details, but you can get some idea how big it is. If you ever get to Rome, I hope you will look it up, and you can see the enormity of the undertaking that he did as he worked on this painting. I'm not going to go into his sculpture so much, but I did want you to get an idea of how involved his painting was. This is the end wall of the Sistine Chapel, Last Judgment, and the colors are absolutely vibrant. He was a colorist. A lot of people think of him as a Catholic painter, and he actually was a Pentecostal. And you can tell he was filled with the Holy Spirit in his work. Then I skip on to the Impressionists, and my favorite one is the father of Impressionism, Monet. And we start to realize, even though Da Vinci was an engineer and an architect, and Michelangelo was an architect, we come into physics more and more with Monet, and the defining of light and dark in paintings. Physics. Every painter is a physicist, especially in the abstract. We see this beautiful painting, lights, full of light, of a cathedral. It's almost abstract. Disappears in the painting. And this amazing painting is pretty much abstract, but it isn't. It's from his wonderful Water Lily series. So Monet shared Impressionism with many, many people. One of my favorite people out of that time was Turner in England. And if you get a chance to see Mr. Turner, the movie, it is worthwhile. Next, we have the Post-Impressionists, and my favorite one is Van Gogh, a man way ahead of his time. Once upon a time, he was a pastor, so his work is very spiritual. He was very fond of the color yellow, and you get that idea from his wonderful sunflower paintings, because he felt like the color yellow was close to God, and he was trying to find the light of God always. This amazing landscape is almost gone totally abstract, but you can tell it's still a landscape. colors, the dots, the lines, the dashes, things start getting curved. It's really amazing. There's wonderful trees. He invents shapes for trees. That's what is so wonderful about contemporary art, modern art. You are encouraged to find your own imagination. See a tree and make it your own. You can't draw from a specific formula, but it has a basic element to it, probably a line and a dot, maybe a plane. His wonderful iris series. These are complementary colors, purple and yellow. Yellow the primary, purple the secondary, complementary. Van Gogh was a wonderful study in color and shapes. His inventions for trees and fields are amazing. Then we skip to the amazing part of the abstract movement with Kandinsky, escaping Russia, being persecuted by Bolsheviks there, and into Germany, having to leave Germany because he was a Russian citizen too, and finally in the umbrella of Paris from 1933 to 1944. He took the geometric shapes and broke them down into amazing abstract shapes and colors and made these wonderful, wonderful shapes and designs on canvases, opening up the imagination. He was in the Bauhaus, one of the big founders of it actually, with Einstein, Mies van der Rohe, Frank Lloyd Wright. Here is amazing paintings of using dots and colors. I hope you can see that close up. Like I said before when I introduced this series, we're in my kitchen studio, and it's raw footage, and I'm just on my smartphone. I don't have a tech crew. So we're doing our very best, and today I'm dressed to paint. It's not a glamour job. This is one of my favorite paintings, all the shapes all disconnected and floating in a field of blue, but they're wonderful to look at. Wonderful imaginative shapes. Could be under a microscope almost. Okay. And then Rothko and a color field painting, and that's the last of my series. I'll show you an example of it today. And he uses just 2 or 3, maybe 4 colors, and does these amazing simplified versions of color fields, they're called. But the textures are just layers and layers of amazing materials. If you can see a museum with any of the Rothkos in it, I recommend you go. Okay, so I want to show you some of my paintings. I don't know if I can get them on camera for you or not, but we have in the background, I want to show you my perspective. This is the cover of one of my books, and it's in the background here. The point of perspective is behind the middle, about the middle of the whole painting, in behind the tree. You can't see that point, but it is inside the piece of art. This painting, like a sunset, but the figure is right here, and the point of perspective is somewhere back here on the horizon, coming out this way, but it gets lost like abstract, and I use paint as texture, thick and shallow bridges. You shouldn't ever touch a painting like that. That's my painting, so I will. But here's another painting I have. I don't know if I can show it to you, but you see the mountains in the back, and as the eagle flies, they get bigger. The perspective point is just beyond the eagle's wings, the last mountain. I hope you can see that. The painting I have on my masthead is a painting of a horrible event down in Coronado Beach around San Diego when the Humboldt squid advanced from the warm waters of the equator up Now clear up north because it was just getting too hot. These squid are huge and they can eat a person whole. There is no perspective here. That was in a big international show, environmental show. This is a painting from a cruise in the Channel Islands, and it's no perspective, straight on, but the shape is what matters. At the bottom were starfish under the ocean, and in the middle was the ground. We were in a sea cave, and the flowers were purple star-shaped flowers. Red starfish, purple flowers, star-shaped, and then at nighttime the stars. But I made Van Gogh-like stars. But the idea is there. Lots of dots, too. I know that's not a very good view, but I wanted you to see that. And my last painting I wanted to share with you is the series I'm starting, color field painting. Remember the Rothko painting I had, I showed you. And I love to paint the ocean and the sky. And this is like a color field painting, the sky and the ocean. And then I write Bible verses in gold and blues. Be still and know that I am God is this particular one. It's not for sale, it's for me. But the idea is just a couple of colors and then the verse. And it's really can be earth tones, it can be flower colors, it can be whatever I want it to be. Sunsets, like moonlight, nighttime, blacks and grays. And then the verse is what I pick. So those are my big paintings right now. These are I wanted to share these small miniature paintings with you, totally abstract, of the Pacific Grove, California. But look, it's all disintegrated. You can hardly tell. It's the coast there, full of rocks, cliffs, ocean waves beating against them. I painted this shortly after Loma Prieta earthquake. I have a sketchbook full of sketches, and then the earthquake hits, and then the sketches disintegrate. It affects the nerves. An earthquake affects the nerves in ways we don't even understand. Everything changed for me. This painting is Big Sur. It's a gorgeous, breathtaking place. And this one is all swirly. I call it abandonment. Some of my deepest anxiety went into painting this. So you can paint small or you can paint larger. I've actually painted a lot larger than those other canvases. But those are all gone. Auctioned off, bought up, wherever. Los Angeles, New England, New York. I hope maybe even the Midwest somewhere. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what you need to paint with. You need acrylic paints. These are pretty inexpensive. I got them at Michael's. And I'm going to try to paint with them today to show you something. They're in plastic tubes, and they apply easily. I've got a drawing painting of a starfish and a sketch painting of a nautilus shell. It's not finished. I had it for years. I used to do nautilus shells. And then, of course, my favorite kind of palette, piece of glass. Acrylic is good too. And then the other one that's great is the palette paper you can get. And it's real thin paper, like wax parchment paper. And you can just use one up and tear it across out of the palette book and throw it away when you're done. Okay, you want a jar of water for acrylics or watercolors because they are water-based. You still may want some pins. Try not to get your pens clogged up in paint, but you may want to use pen to sketch on a painting first. I don't know what you want to do. Today I did a sketch that I was hoping I would go out in the park and show you, but I won't have time. My fall in the circle. I live in a circle and all the trees are going to start turning red, but it's all abstract. It's very moving. I'm doing these abstract movement paintings right now, a series of them for mentor shows and teacher education shows coming next year. I hope things go that way. And so everything is going in that kind of technique, that kind of style. I'm using these little wooden palettes today on this sketch. And I'm going to use white paint and browns and golds, metals, bronze, copper. I don't know how it'll turn out. And then I've got some wax metallic finish. I don't know if it'll work or not. I think it will. You just use it and rub on. There's all kinds of finishes you can buy at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or online at Dick Blick's. You need a medium. This is a gloss medium and varnish for acrylics. And that preserves your paint for years. A professional will always use a medium. You don't have to. It'll go on without it. But it does give it a nice finish. Protective. Okay, so we have looked at the palette canvases. Oh, yes. And then I was going to go, as I said, out to the park. You can see my table easel right here. I'm going to come up close, show you. It's got my canvas on, and I'm going to do fall in the circle in that I showed you the sketch for. And it's on my table easel. See how it works. And that actually is a French easel that Impressionists use when they go paint outside. And they set it up and can paint from it standing in front of their live subject outside in nature, the natural light. And today is probably the last day for a long time because of big storms moving in for days. And with wind and rain, I can't go out there and paint in that. But I don't have time to do all that. So we're not going to do that, but I'm going to probably show you after the holidays how this happened. You see the sky, the blues of the sky, and the trees starting to turn green and red and yellows, and then the earth tones. Yeah, suggestions. I can do that because abstraction has made its mark. It's established. And I hope I have convinced those of you who watch this and your friends that is nothing to be afraid of, that it's exciting, inventive, innovative. It's your imagination. Everyone has a creative side to them. You should never keep it closed down. It's unhealthy. And you should go to museums and galleries or the library and get books and look at these people who have gone way out there and explored it, just like space, Kandinsky or Van Gogh, and open these doors for people so that we can relax and enjoy painting and drawing and sketching and find new ways to create a tree. Okay, so I'm going to use my acrylic palette, but I'm going to use a paper on it. So what I'm going to do is take this off and put it on there to paint on. Okay, so there we go. Came off real easily. And I'm going to put it on here. And I'm going to use white paint. These are really nice how they open up. And I'm just going to put some white paint there. And I'm going to put some, this is copper, bronze. Don't get your paints too close to one another. Don't need too much. I don't need too much. And so I just put a little bit on there, some gold. A little bit of gold. Gold goes a long way. It's very shiny, reflective of light. Raw sienna. And, what is this? Bronze. Just a dab of that. Okay. Now, I wanted to show you. I have my basket here. Always have an old cloth so that you can wipe your hands, wipe your face. I get paint all over me. Sometimes I use my fingers. Finger painting is the beginning of learning how to really paint. And you want to keep clean. You might want to dab up places. And then I wanted to show you. You can get packets of brushes. Packets of brushes for under $10 at Michael's Hobby Lobby, and has all kinds of sizes of brushes. I recommend doing that. I keep my brushes in here. I want to use maybe I'll use my bamboo stick. Remember I talked about the Japanese making a wonderful brush like that? And I'm going to use a sponge brush. And I'm going to use a very nice acrylic brush, small, medium size, and a tiny brush. This is one of my favorite brushes. I'm not going to be using it today. It's a fan brush. It makes wonderful shapes on your canvas, textures. Brushes make textures, that's right, they do. Okay, and then one more for a nice point. It's hard to see that, but it's a very fine point. And then I'm going to use my little wooden stick here. I don't have my palette knife. I don't know where it is, unfortunately. But that's important to have a palette knife as well. You can paint with a palette knife. Some people use a palette knife to mix paints on a canvas, on the palette, excuse me.